Hi everyone, I'm Adam Reynoldsson from PlayStation Australia, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Joel Eschler, who's flown all the way from Guerrilla Games in Amsterdam to be with us today. Joel, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I should say, welcome home actually, because you're from Australia originally.
Yeah, I'm born and bred in Sydney.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself initially? How did you end up working in the games industry?
Yeah, I actually never really planned on working in the industry. I studied astrophysics at university, and I took a gap year, try and travel, save up some money as you do, and the gap year job I happened to get was working for 2K Games as a game tester, and that was nearly a decade ago now.
So that was 2K in Australia?
Yeah.
So tell us a small bit about the work that you did for 2K.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough while working at 2K to work on the entirety of the BioShock franchise, working between Australia and Irrational Games in Boston. I worked on XCOM while I was there, and I also worked on Borderlands the pre-sequel, which is the most Australian game that probably will ever be created, because I think it's almost offensively Australian. But still, it was really a fun game for us to inject a lot of Australian humour and kind of watch people on the internet try and understand what on earth we were talking about.
Well, I think the confusing thing was the Don side quest that was thrown in there in the pre-sequel. Has anyone quite figured out what a snicket is yet?
Maybe more people understand that sport than they do actually cricket worldwide now. But that was kind of a lifelong dream to get, maybe even a relation to cricket, but an entire quest related to cricket into a AAA video game. It was kind of awesome.
That's cool. So tell us about the jump over to Guerrilla Games. How did that come about, that opportunity?
Yeah, so 2K Games, Australia shut down a couple of years ago, unfortunately, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. I knew I wanted to stay in the games industry, but I also really liked living in Australia, going to the beach, of course. I was talking to studios that were offering jobs in the US, in Canada, in Singapore, but there really weren't any projects that excited me enough to pack up my life and move to another country. And then in 2015, the E3 reveal trailer for Horizon Zero Dawn came out. And I kind of stood up and took notice of that. And I didn't necessarily rush out to join Guerrilla, but I was thinking about it. I was really impressed. I thought it was the most exciting project out there at that time. And they actually reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in working for them. And I flew out to Amsterdam and spent a week there with the team and playing the game, and I was just blown away. The team over there is so committed and so talented, and the game, even at that point, was really impressive. I could see the potential for it, and after a brief discussion with my wife, we packed our pets up, all of our furniture and everything, and moved over to Amsterdam.
That's excellent. So can you tell us about your role with Guerrilla Games and the work that you do on Horizon Zero Dawn?
Yeah, so I am a producer at Guerrilla, so I mean, typically I look after the schedules, the long-term planning for staff and for projects and for budgets, these kinds of things, like the workflows and pipelines. For Horizon Zero Dawn specifically, I was looking after the environment after the game. So making sure that teams were all working and making the areas as diverse and detailed as we possibly could, but also making sure that we're running at 30 frames at 1080p. Making sure we're polishing the right areas, making sure our lighting system is working, and we're building everything that we need to make Horizon Zero Dawn as detailed as it possibly could be.
So speaking of the environments in Horizon Zero Dawn, the game's been described as a post-apocalyptic world. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think there's a fascination in general with people with post-apocalyptic stories and worlds. I think if you look at media in the last 10 years, that all the biggest projects have been zombie stories or society crumbling, and we're also fascinated in that. But because we have a team of artists that want to make something beautiful, we didn't really want to make the typical grey, crumbling. We wanted to make something colourful and vibrant, we really wanted to take that what if question even further. So we set Horizon Zero Dawn 1,000 years in the future. So the apocalypse has already happened, and at this point, it's not even a memory for the humans that are still surviving. So much time has passed that they have no idea. Their only history and everything that makes up their society and their beliefs is something that's completely new to us, something that we can't even fathom. And this is particularly because the humans aren't the dominant species on Earth anymore, the machines are. So their entire worldview and their beliefs in the world are based around having these machines that dominate the landscape. And some of them view them as resources to hunt, others view them as these mystical creatures. And we really want to kind of push ourselves to build this beautiful world where nature has taken over everything, but also contrast it against the odd remnants of our history, which they don't view as history, they just view them as mysteries.
Yeah. So the game itself is an action RPG. Can you tell us more about the actual gameplay?
Yeah, so we wanted to build a game. It's a really large game in scope, with a lot of different areas, a lot of different enemies, all of this. But we really wanted to allow players to choose how they want to play as Aloy. So we wanted to make sure that we had a super tight combat system with a lot of different options. A lot of the machines are very fast and they have a lot of different attacks, weaknesses and strengths. So we need to make sure that Aloy was agile because the machines are agile. So you need to be able to switch from firing a bow to sliding to using your melee to setting traps and all of these things. But we also want to provide the options of playing stealthy. If you want to go in, you can use your focus to scan the enemies, to sense their weaknesses, to know what type of traps to lay. You can go from stealth location to stealth location and try and take them out silently, or you can just plant a number of bombs or use your slingshot to explode them, or use electricity to stun them, and you can hack a robot to be on your side so you have an ally. So that was kind of a core belief to try and give players options for how they want to pursue different encounters. And on the RPG side, we on that same note, we want different skill trees. So again, if you want to be a stealthy player, if you want to be able to run faster or use concentration to kind of slow time down when you're shooting your bow, or kind of I call this the sharing to Facebook skill, where if you're sprinting and you slide, then time slows down, so you can get that cool moment of just as a machine is going to jump to try and attack you, you can slide underneath them in slow motion and shoot their belly, which it always looks cool.
Yep. So press the share button, make sure you capture that.
Yeah, and on that note as well, we have a number of different weapons. We have a number of different outfits. Each weapon and outfit has their own advantages against different types of enemies and elements, and you can modify all of these as well. So really, we wanted to take the combat to be the best combat you can expect from an action game, and all of the best RPG elements being completely solid, not going this side is good, this side is not so good. We want to make them both really, really good.
Excellent. So obviously it's a new franchise for Guerrilla Games. How difficult is it moving from such a critically acclaimed and long-running series like Killzone, moving to a new franchise in Horizon Zero Dawn?
Yeah, so Horizon Zero Dawn specifically held its own challenges for the team. Technically, we need to go from something that was a more linear game, which is level-based with loading screens, to a seamless streaming open world where you can be standing on the peak of a mountain and look down at a jungle and snow-capped mountains this way, and seeing a thunderjaw walking off in the distance and say, I want to go there, and you can just hop on a mountain and ride over there with no loading screens, and to still have the detailed rendering kilometers away in the distance. That was a challenge, and that was a completely different challenge to what Guerrilla had previously with the Killzone series. So there are a lot of exciting and fun technical challenges the team took on, but there's also there was a new design philosophy. Again, with creating a linear game, you can predict what the player is going to do, what weapons they're going to have. You know exactly what enemies are going to be there. So you can build each scenario around every single player action. But in Horizon Zero Dawn, you can be any level, be in any location, have any weapon, have any number of enemies around you, and play any different style based on any different skill tree, but it has to be fun, no matter what those different variables may be. And that was definitely a new philosophy for the design team, to make sure that every single system interacted with one another. So the dynamic weather and the dynamic night system talks to the vegetation system to know when more wind should be blowing in the trees, to make sure that if you have a hacked robot, that it will do these attacks on this other type of robot, or how they're going to team up, how these different elemental attacks, whether using fire or ice or using a precision bow, how they're going to work against these different enemies, to make sure that you're not overpowered and this one's not overpowering you. so that no matter what any of these variables are, you can succeed in the game. It's not going to be easy, you need to learn how to play them, but we never want to have a scenario where you absolutely can't beat this. And yeah, that was a big challenge that the guys took on, but I think it was also something they're really excited to do as well. They worked with the technical team, with the art team, and everyone just worked together to make sure that we could deliver on that promise.
Excellent. So obviously the main protagonist in this story is Aloy, and we've seen quite a few clips already with playing as Aloy. It looks absolutely amazing. Can you tell us more about the character?
Yeah, so Aloy was one of the three key pillars of the game that existed from its very existence, from the pitch that sold the internal team at Guerrilla to commit to making this game. She's just always been part of Horizon Zero Dawn. And Aloy, when you start out, you played Aloy as a child, and she's an outcast from her tribe. She lives in the Embrace region where the Nora tribe inhabit, and she is an outcast, for reasons that you'll find out fairly early on. But Aloy obviously doesn't understand why she's an outcast. It's not fair. She goes upon her journey trying to discover why this happened, how she can prove her worthiness, the history of the Nora tribe, why they would be shunning her so much, and also to try and herself feel accepted within the world. So that's kind of the beginning of her journey, and to do this, she trains to become the most powerful huntress in the region, so no one can look at her and say that she's not worthy. And beyond that, once you finally, as Aloy, do prove your worthiness within the tribe, so you're more accepted, the whole giant open world outside of the Embrace opens up where the Nora never go, but Aloy is able to. And from this point forward, she's uncovering the mysteries of the machines and the different tribes around the regions and these old world locations, what the ruins are, what the history is, how society crumbled. And at the same time, that this is new to Aloy, it's new to the player as well. So we really wanted the player to feel like they're uncovering and discovering everything at the same time that Aloy is.
So we've recently found out that Ashley Birch is going to be the voice actor behind Aloy. And you've previously worked with Ashley on the Borderlands series. What do you think she's going to bring to the character?
Yeah, so Ashley is a complete pro. She brings such character. And she has such range as well. And in Borderlands, she voiced Tiny Tina. For us, in this one, she voices Aloy. And I can definitely say, speaking to the team, that for a long time during development, as you're writing scripts and you're starting to get scenes into the game, we use this technology called Robo Voice, where it's basically computer-generated voice that just reads from a script. And it doesn't have any emotion, but it does allow you to listen and kind of get a feel for the way the conversations are going. But from the moment we actually started to get real VO from Ashley in the game, it really brought Aloy's character to life and enhanced our understanding of who Aloy is and the feeling within the world. And she just, she was the pro from beginning to end, and it was a secret that everyone had to kind of hold on to, because I know that she's so loved in the community as well. It was hard to keep it under wraps, but yeah, we're really happy to have her working with us on this game.
That's excellent. We've had a couple of hands-on experiences with Horizon Zero Dawn so far. What's the feedback been like from the community?
It's been humbling, you work on these games for so long and you put so much time into them, and you really never know. Internally, when you work on something for so long, it could be great, it could not be great. It's hard to separate yourself from a lot of this, and it's been amazing to see people have hands-on and really respond well to Aloy as a character, and to enjoy the world that we built, and to really engage with the different tactical combat that we built for taking down the machines. It's really awesome, and I really take my hat off to the team back at Guerrilla for building such an amazing game that has so many different ways that people can play it, because from what we've seen so far, I think people are going to like it.
Joel Eschler from Guerrilla Games, thank you very much.
No worries, thanks for having me.
PS4 for the players.